Welcome to Trashmagination, a podcast about reimagining trash. I'm Carla Brown. One of my first jobs was at a textile recycling center, where workers sorted donated clothing for secondhand stores. And do you know what type of clothing was consistently in the worst shape? It was dress shirts. The seams were rubbed raw with holes and stains, and most did not even make it to the secondhand stores that we were sorting for, but they were baled up and sold to mechanics as rags. So today's episode is all about the creative reuse ideas for dress shirts and neckties. Father's Day is around the corner, and when I was looking at Father's Day cards, I noticed that many cards featured neckties and dress shirts. That's kind of an old-fashioned symbol for this holiday. The Society for Human Resources Management does an employee benefits survey where they ask businesses across the U.S. how often they allow people to wear casual dress. At first, many places only allowed it once a week, but now many places offer it every day of the week. In 2014, only 19% of workplaces allowed casual dress every day, but that increased to 83% by 2016. So what are we going to do with all this unneeded formal attire? The first project that I made with neckties or dress shirts were crazy quilts. Crazy quilts are an American invention. It's a type of patchwork quilt where the blocks vary in size and fabric type, and they are joined by decorative stitches and embroidery. My friend Connie made me a crazy quilt pillow from neckties maybe 25 years ago. She liked to gather her ties for very little money at estate sales. But I didn't go to estate sales. I went to FreeCycle. And if you've never used it before, it's a service where you can offer things for free as long as people will come pick them up from your house. You can also put up a note that says something that you want. So I put up a note saying, "Wanted, neckties. I will pick up if you have at least 10. And most people gave me 40 or 50 or even more ties. It's really easy to take apart neckties. They are held together by a single row of stitching up the back. Inside the tie is a thick piece of white fabric. And often that fabric is stained because I think very few people actually dry clean their ties very often. So I washed my neckties by hand. I was concerned the colors might bleed into other clothing if I put it in the washing machine. Even if you did put it in the washing machine, you need to put it in something like a mesh laundry bag, or it would very quickly get tied into a lot of knots. Sewing necktie fabric is challenging because the fabric is very wiggly. To prepare the tie fabric for sewing, I attached something called fusible interfacing. This is a mesh fabric that sticks to the other fabric when you iron them together at a low setting. Once I was teaching a class on making quilts from neckties, and I needed to process hundreds of ties quickly in preparation for the class. So I brought my ties and fusible interfacing to work, and during our lunch break, my colleagues helped me pin the ties to the interfacing, and then they would help me cut them out so I could iron them. It was like a giant game of Tetris because we were trying to use up every square inch of the interfacing. It might seem like an odd thing to do with your colleagues, but it was really fun, and it was nice to take a break from the computers at lunchtime. Beyond crazy quilts, there are many quilts made from neckties, because the fabric designs on ties are often very rich and colorful. You can see a bunch of these quilts and other sewing projects made from neckties at my Pinterest board for ties and dress shirts, which I will link to in the show notes. And I was looking over my Pinterest board the other day where I saw an origami butterfly made from fabric. And I gave it a try, and it worked really nicely with the silk neckties and some cotton on the other side. So check out the butterflies that I made at my blog, Trashmagination.com. Another necktie sewing craft that I admire was designed by Bets White, who wrote the book Sewing Green and many others that involve upcycling textiles. She designed something called a hip sling bag, which involves 4 rather wide ties sewn together, and the skinny parts of the ties form the handles. Other projects on my Pinterest board for neckties and dress shirts include wine totes made from ties. For Christmas, a popular craft is to make a Christmas tree skirt from ties. This is the thing that goes on the floor below the Christmas tree. Also, Good Housekeeping has a really cool wreath that they made from ties. For Easter, one of the things you can do is wrap your eggs with a silk tie. And if you boil it with water and vinegar, it transfers the pattern of the tie onto the egg, which is pretty cool. For Halloween, you can make a pumpkin from orange and brown ties sewn together into a pumpkin shape. If you have little kids, it's fun to make a snake toy from a tie where the head is made from the wider end of the tie and then you stuff it. Finally, if you actually like your ties and you think you'll wear them, but they're just not very fashionable anymore, there is a business that can make your too wide tie into a skinnier tie. It's called Skinny Fat Ties. The owner says it takes about 2 hours to remake a tie. So next, let's switch gears and talk about dress shirts. Here are some projects that you can make with dress shirts. So a popular one is to make a pillow where you keep a lot of the components of the shirt. So you keep the collar, you might keep the pocket, and you keep the button-up section in the front. And when you hug this pillow, it's kind of like you're hugging the person who wore that shirt. And you could make that with a dress shirt, or it's really nice with a soft flannel shirt too. Another dress shirt project involves cutting off the cuffs of the dress shirt and looping them one around each other. You just undo the buttons and then do the button back up again and attach them like a chain. And it makes something like a garland or a banner. If the dress shirts are all in nice pastel colors, this might be nice in the spring. You can make a dress shirt cuff purse. This is a really quick project that basically involves cutting off about half of the sleeve of the shirt and then sewing up the edges so that you use the button at the end in order to keep the purse shut. There's a wine bottle holder made out of a shirt sleeve as well. Again, the bottle is poking out of the part where the button is in the sleeve. There's an artist that I've been following named Ashley Dedden, and her company is A&D. She will take your favorite dress shirt or any dress shirt, and she will make bow ties from it. And this is really popular for weddings if you want everybody to have matching ties. Let me share some stories about some artists who use ties and dress shirts in their work. One is Karina Kekkonen, a Finnish artist who does really cool stuff with shirts. She strings them in long lines in public places and creates often like a gradiated, colorful landscape with the fading colors of the shirts. I watched an interview where she mentioned that her dad passed away when she was 10, and she often wore his shirts as a young teen, so dress shirts have a lot of meaning for her. Sherry Lynn Wood is an artist who does a lot of creative reuse, and since 2002, she has made passage quilts, which are quilts that she makes from the clothing of people who have passed away. She talks about how the process can be therapeutic for the family and friends. Sometimes she facilitates a workshop where the friends and family come and make one or more quilts from the clothing, even if they've never quilted before. Derek Melander is a New York artist who sculpts with folded and stacked secondhand clothing into giant sculptures that can fill a room. Again, he plays with gradients of color as the clothing items blend into each other, and volunteers help fold thousands of pieces of clothing. Guerra de la Paz is the name for two Cuban artists who work together, Alain Guerra and Neraldo de la Paz, and they make sculptures from clothing, often big stacks and piles of clothing. So finally, here's a checklist of activities inspired by this podcast. First, let me know if you have made any projects from ties or dress shirts. I'm always looking for more inspiration, and you can email me at trashmagination@gmail.com. Ask your family and friends for their ties and dress shirts to make the projects, and maybe instead of giving your father a tie for Father's Day, offer to take an unwanted tie out of his collection and make it into something fun instead. Have a great Father's Day. So until next time, may you see trash as just another source of art in your life.